and welcome to Gilmore's Glorious Gossip, a show dedicated to Critical Role over on the Geek and Sundry Twitch channel. I apologize for no episode last week. We had some technical difficulties that I explained in the short little blurb that I put up. But this week, we are showing the art from the amazing artists that we had last week, because I promised them it would be up, so we're featuring it. The current art is from Joma Cueto, who is at Forging Meaning over on Twitter. Later, you'll be seeing a piece from Jesse Larson, at Jesse Larson. Jesse J. Larson, rather. I apologize for that. And finally, yes, you are getting a third artist this week, a piece by Brando Calrissian, at Brand Name Serial, over on Twitter. If you'd like
I love that piece.
Yes. If you'd like your art featured here, please let any of the show's hosts know via Twitter, and we'll do our best to get it on the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can catch us every Monday. I'm Akiva, found on Twitter at AKIVADAPHYDD. And joining me today are my excellent friends. Let's introduce ourselves and tell us what has been your most often forgotten rule when you're DMing.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kalia at Cosmic Candy, C-A-N-D-I, and my most forgotten rule depends on the day, but primarily it is grapple checks. I always get confused about when somebody is performing the grapple, whether they use athletics versus like straight strength, and the defender, which one they use. That just confuses me.
It's an easy one to confuse.
Yeah, that can get definitely confusing. Hi guys, I'm Kat, Kittensmitten G on Twitter. I forget different rules, different sessions. It's really weird. Like sometimes one session I'll remember to do one thing and forget one thing, and then the next session it'll change, so it really depends. But yeah, sometimes things just get a bit overwhelming, especially when you have a lot of people in the battlefield.
Exactly. Keeping track of rules when you're having to worry about everybody.
Yeah.
Ooh. For me, it has always been falling damage. I have to look it up every time, no matter how many times it happens, simply because it tends not to happen. I don't know why, but... so just before we get into the recap, I just want to remind you guys...
You have players who are good
ahead.
at not falling.
Yes. And it's just one of those things. But as I was saying, before we get into the recap for the previous episode, if you're seeing this on Monday, this evening from 7 to 10 p.m. Pacific, the No Survivors time slot, Matt will be running a Pathfinder campaign, or Pathfinder one-shot, rather. Just to
Very
show
excited.
off. Yes, just to show off the system that they originally ran the Vox Machina group through before they came to Geek and Sundry. So it's rather interesting, very rules heavy, lots and lots of dice rolls. So.
Yep, get out your calculators.
Indeed. But with that, we will go ahead and jump into the previous episode that you guys should have seen last week. So in the previous episode, the group is misting along. They find a set of tents near a lake, and it turns out to be the Western refugees, or at least 60 of them or so. And there's a brief discussion about sending the refugees to Whitestone. The group lands. Vox Machina gives some aid that night, talks with the refugee leader, and while talking with him, they get some information that the camp has been hit by orc raids that have plagued the refugees. And one thing that's interesting is, although they stay the night with the refugees, Scanlan doesn't use his mansion to house them. And go ahead.
Sorry, you cut out for me there.
Oh.
I lost the very end of that sentence. He doesn't use the mansion, and I lost the rest of it.
Oh, I said he doesn't use the mansion, and then you took your breath, and I stopped. So you didn't miss anything.
Okay.
So, as I was saying, Scanlan does not use the mansion, and instead, they stay in a tent, eating some of the fish that the refugees get from the lake, and all of that. I found that interesting because Scanlan seemed to not know the limits of the spell, despite it being spelled out very clearly, that he could fit 100 people in there. Yeah,
Matt had mentioned that, that you can fit a lot of people in here. It's plenty spacious. I think though that we're seeing some of Scanlan's selfishness coming into play a little bit here. It's his new toy, and he wants to keep it for himself. And Vox Machina.
Yeah, I looking back on it now, yeah, I can see that. Definitely.
Especially because we see it in the next episode that we'll be talking about.
Yes. So, the next morning, Vox Machina is sends the willing refugees up to Whitestone via the tree teleport thing. And after they close the portal, Dresvina, who Vox Machina had been contracted by way back in the day, before Stream.
Yep.
He comes up and introduces a gentleman that's finely dressed as his master, Master Qual. There's some discussion about hiring Vox Machina to get an artifact, a circlet, from Qual's home. Because, it's one of the things that Qual had created as a means of protection for himself. Means of personal defense was the specific phrasing that he used. Which sort of leads me to... In the discussion, it comes out that Qual is pretty much a necromancer focusing in on the golem making rather than actual necromancy. So that, putting the two together, I thought it was possibly a circlet of golem control. Sort of like a shield golem or something.
Right. And of course, we know that golems can be temperamental at best. So having the circlet of golem control is essential in that line of work.
Indeed. So to help them get the circlets, Vox Machina is lent what they call the Hunk of Qual. And the description of it says to me it's an orb of detect magic. You hold it out, and within a certain radius, which turns out to be pretty narrow if you take in, the new episode as well.
Right.
It sort of causes magical runes and that sort of thing to glow within a certain defined radius. But just after they come to an agreement, Grog gives Pike his gauntlets of ogre power. And the picture...
Pike Hulk hands.
Yes. And the picture that you'll be seeing a little bit later illustrates her reaction quite well, and it is so cute and so awesome. But the gauntlets of ogre power raises her strength up to a 19. So at this point, at their base strengths, Pike is now stronger than Grog.
That's awesome. That's an awesome thing.
Yes. Pike's strength goes from a 13 to a 19. If you're looking at purely the bonuses, the strength bonus goes from a +1 to a +4. And it brings her attack bonus to a +10. I doubt she'll be missing anything soon if she goes for a melee attack.
Yeah, I doubt it. I doubt it. Highly doubt it. I mean, the natural one comes up, but Ashley, we don't wish that on you. Please, 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 please know that we don't wish that on you. And now I've said something Frel.
Hey, knock on wood. Knock on wood. So, after that, the party travels into the Frostweald, and Vax is kind of standoffish, trying to stay away from Pike. So Pike insight checks Vax to figure out why. She gets a nat 20 on the roll. And Liam decides to text Ashley what's going on so that the rest of the players, and consequently the viewers, don't know what's going on there.
And Ashley did a thing where she got kind of cheeky, and she actually posted on Twitter, if you guys had seen what Liam had sent me last night, you would be all... And then she posted a picture from an episode of the original series, Star Trek, of these kids just crying.
But what was actually sent was never posted to Twitter, so we're all...
Right.
We want to know.
I'm sure we'll find out.
Hopefully. But for that night's rest, Scanlan pulls out his mansion, and while in there, he talks to Pike a little bit about Craven Edge, because the episode previous to that, where he talked with Grog about the sword. I'm kind of nervous, especially after the most recent episode.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a little bit, though. So, also before they go to bed, Vex pulls Vax into the library and talks to him a little bit about why he's been avoiding Pike, and sort of outlines what the Raven Queen stands for and what following her would mean as far as the basic tenets and that sort of thing. And I thought these were important enough to go ahead and add here. The basic tenets are, have no pity for the dying. Death is a natural part of life. Punish hubris. Cast down those who try to defy fate and live an immortal life. Meaning, she hates vampires.
Or liches, even.
Oh, especially liches. But, Vex uses that to try to further encourage Vax. And then, the last tenet that she mentions is watch for the courts of Orcus and destroy them wherever they arise. And Orcus, of course, is the...
demonic god of undeath.
Yes. He thrives on making zombies and such, so...
Fun fact, Orcus's wand can actually create a horde of 500 zombies. Just saying.
So when do I get that wand?
Close to never. Close to never.
Okay. So Vax reveals to his sister that the Raven Queen's already speaking to him. And Vex, encourages him to, quote, embrace the shadows, end quote, and actually be her champion. And then she steals the epic walk away.
Which is awesome. I hope that every character within Vox Machina does the epic walk away throughout the next several episodes here.
Yes. So they continue on their journey, 8 hours long. They enter the Frostweald. And the way it was described during their journey, it was, about 70 degrees, which had me kind of worried because the Frostweald was described as being a tundra-like area. And that would have been a really short journey for that drastic a climate change. But Matt clarified that it's magically placed in perpetual winter. The reason for it was lost, but it's magical.
And it's mentioned again in the next episode, too. It's mentioned in passing. Matt, again, says, there's a reason that this was gone, but it's, lost to time or something along those lines.
Which kind of has me wondering, does he have a story hook in there just in case.
I'm sure he does. This is Matt we're talking about.
Well, yes, but it's more a question of how far does that story hook go. So, going into the Frostweald, which turns out to be a forest, Vox Machina finds an obelisk surrounded by stone ruins. Looking at the obelisk, there are carvings on it, and after clearing away the snow so they can see the obelisk better, Keyleth sees burrows for basilisks.
Yep.
They jump out.
And not only that, but Percy started recognizing the signs even. They came across this statue garden, and he started asking all kinds of very intelligent questions. Are they classical, or do they look like there's fear on their faces?
Yes.
So he started asking the right questions, which, since the party has encountered basilisks before,
Makes
as a
sense.
DM, I'm going to allow them.
Absolutely. It makes sense, and it very much, because they've encountered them before, could not be considered metagaming.
Right.
It was a character knows what to look for. So the basilisks pop up, and there's a short fight with them. And during the fight, the danger in fighting a basilisk is if you're within a certain range of them, 30 feet.
Typically 30 feet.
Typically 30 feet. If you're looking at them, you have to make I believe it's a Constitution saving throw, or else you become petrified. So throughout the fight, most of the time, the party is averting their gaze, so they're not looking at the basilisk, which gives them what is the word I'm looking for? Starts with a D.
Disadvantage.
Disadvantage. Thank you. On their attacks. But Keyleth uses her one of her wild shapes to become a scorpion, which gives her blind sight. So her attacks are no longer at disadvantage, even though she's not looking at the basilisks. And of course,
that was well played by Marisha. Very well played.
Now, initially, Matt thought that the magical effect, or that there was an issue between the blind sight popping into effect as soon as she took her scorpion form, or if the blind sight would come into effect at the top of her next turn.
I see where Matt was coming from, though, because the basilisk says if where was it? If a creature starts its turn within 30 feet and the two of them can see each other, the basilisk can force the creature to make a Constitution saving throw. So Matt was correct in that she started her turn and she could see it, but she was looking down at the ground. So it could not force the saving throw. So I mean, I see where Matt was coming from there, and I'm inclined to agree with him. I probably would have run it similarly and said, okay, now that you're transformed, you don't have to worry about it.
Yes,
but you started your turn able to see the basilisk.
Yes,
that's where I came from.
That's the phrase. One of the phrases you used in there, I'm going to latch onto. Once you transform, the transformation happened before the attacks. The blind sight bonus comes up as soon as the transformation happens. So she was transformed and made the attacks as a scorpion. The scorpion has blind sight. Her attacks are as the scorpion. And that's the way Matt eventually ruled it.
See, and I don't recall where the basilisks went in turn order. So,
but it doesn't matter where they go. because this is all happening in the middle of Keyleth's turn. So she averted her eyes, which would have given disadvantage, but then she changed, and then she attacked. If she didn't attack and then change, she changed, then attacked. So the blind sight came up as soon as she changed. And then... That's
right, but the petrifying gaze, and I'm not going to try and belabor this anymore, but the petrifying gaze says if a creature starts its turn within 30 feet and the two of them can see each other. Yes. She started her turn. She was half elf form. She was looking down.
But see that what Matt was doing the same thing you're doing in confusing the averting the gaze to avoid the Constitution save versus the blind sight happening at the time of transformation. Those are two separate entities. Because the averting the gaze stopped mattering once she transformed. But
right. But she did not transform until after the start of her turn. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, but
so again, by that point, I mean, she was looking down.
Yeah, and therefore, once she said, "I'm looking down, I'm averting my gaze," nothing else needed to happen. The blind sight bonus pops up as soon as she transforms, and then she attacks. And he was trying. The confusion came because he was trying to reconcile the timing of everything, where averting the gaze, transformation, attack. And he was thinking that the averting the gaze, attack, transformation. And that's not the way it happened.
Okay. Oops, and I just lost my headphones. There we go. I'm back.
But, so, at that point, after, while they were discussing the clarification and all that, Sam makes a blind sight joke based off of Blind Spot, where Ashley is, co-starring, and Taliesin pops up with, "How did we not walk right into that joke?" So, but after the battle, they investigate the obelisk a little bit more. Scanlan puts his Iron Stone into the hole. The top of the obelisk glows, and there is a matching glow from the south near the mountains. They start heading in that direction, and as they're leaving, Vax sees their old mapmaker friend, Tyriok, who is missing an arm now since it has been broken off, and he is completely turned into stone.
Now, real quick, before we go too much further, I just had this thought. We see the beacon of Ioun light on top of this mountain, and then we see it light in the distant mountains. Do you think there's any chance that Thordak at all could have possibly seen that as well?
Considering Thordak is still in Iman, to my knowledge, no. Because if you look at the map of Tal'Dorei, it is way too far away. I mean, you're talking probably a good 2-3 weeks of travel.
Okay. I mean, it's possible that maybe Raishan and I cannot remember the Black Dragon's name at all.
Neither can I. I want to say it started with a U.
But you're right. You can't remember the name. Anyway, but Raishan and the Black Dragon, they were supposedly in the area.
Unless they were flying, I don't think either of them saw it either.
Okay, just an interesting side thought that I just had here. Because we all know how the beacons of Gondor worked in the Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, and I don't think it's that extensive a network. I think it just shows the next point in the journey. Because Matt had mentioned that the obelisk seemed to be like a waystone for pilgrimage. So once they see Tyriok, Vax starts to turn away, sort of following the tenets of the Raven Queen, but it's in a little bit of a gray area on whether or not petrification equals death.
And, my thought on it is it equals death until it doesn't anymore. There are ways out of petrification. So
Yes.
it's a state of limbo at best.
Yeah. It can go either way. I personally think it is death, but it's, in order to fix it, it's really just a greater restoration.
Yep.
So you can go either way with
there's
it.
other methods. There's other methods too.
True.
It's really, I'm gonna say it's like stasis. You're putting a character in carbonite.
Yeah, you can take it that way as well. I think I like that one better. I think I'll start using it that way. They're in stasis. But yeah, Pike fixes it with a greater restoration, and Matt's voice work for Tyriok is awesome.
Yes.
Like, as I said when we first tried recording this, when Matt did his Will Friedle impression of that character, I thought Matt was, lip syncing.
Mm-hmm.
Or I thought Will had actually been, I thought Will had come back into the room, and I had to look up because I was taking notes. But when Matt did the voice work for Tyriok, looking right at Matt, I thought he was lip syncing and someone else was speaking. Because that was just, wow.
There were a lot of pictures that went around on Twitter too this week. I know Jet had posted one at Ahoy Hoy Jet. Had posted one of Matt and then a picture of Milo from Atlantis.
Yes, I saw that.
And then melded them together. Yeah,
and then,
great picture. Go check it out.
There was another picture where somebody had posted, or the original post had done this essentially the same thing, where they were side by side, and then somebody responded with "fixed" and had erased Milo's arm. Please forgive me, I forget who it was that actually did that, but that was hilarious.
If it's not, it should be tagged with #CriticalRoleFanArt so that we can go find it.
This one was not, unfortunately. I've looked for it again, and it was not.
Well, if Liam ever gets a hold of this person, he's going to yell at them. So tag your fan art, you guys. Tag it.
Yes. So Tyriok joins the group in order to lead them to where the orcs are, because that's how he ended up by the basilisk. He was trying to avoid the orcs. But while Vax had walked away, again because of the not being very clear on whether petrification was death or not, Vax walked away, and he has a little chat with the Raven Queen. And he goes, "I need answers." So the Raven Queen sends him a vision of her temple in Vasselheim. At the very end, a hand comes out of a red pool. I'm assuming it's blood. It's an easy assumption to make. Although
yep, I assumed the same thing.
Yeah. It's not outright stated that it's blood, but it is crimson, and it does coat the arm when it comes up. So let you draw your own assumptions. And it sort of beckons him. And I took that to mean that, to translate to, if you want answers, come to my temple, dumbass.
Yeah, and I took it the same way. And, Vax was saying not really what I was looking for, not really what I wanted, and seemed really disappointed by it. And I don't know why he was so disappointed by that.
I don't think he was trying to interpret it. He wanted something tangible and immediate.
Immediate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I want patience, and I want it right now.
Yes, but Vax does get credit on how he finished up that little tidbit. Congratulations on being creepy.
Yeah, I mean that whole vision, it was masterfully woven by Matt.
Yes.
If you haven't watched the episode yet, go watch it. Because the descriptions during this part, we cannot do them justice.
I had chills. Honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, I was on the edge of my seat at that part, and you guys know how non-emotional I am, I guess. How detached I can be from some of these episodes. But that part had me on the edge of my seat going, damn, that's amazing.
And that is where episode 48 ends.
Good episode overall.
Indeed.
Yeah, we had the combat. And then, I really, really, really liked the Vax brother sister talk about the Raven Queen, and I think going into episode 49, which you're going to hear next, we talk a little bit about Vex kind of embracing death, and I think we can kind of mark this as a point where she's not afraid of it anymore. She's looked in now at the face of death.
Yes. She's seen what's on the other side. I'm just worried that she's going to get a little too cocky about it and go too far and lose whatever she saw on the other side.
Yeah. So. It remains to be seen.
But let us move on. And now moving on to episode 49, where we pick up with the group finding the orcs. We are going to change things up a little bit, do a little more freeform rather than the structure that we normally have. We'll see if you guys like it better. Let us know down in the comments below if you prefer the freeform or the more structured, step-by-step, just less in-depth. And so we pick up, Tyriok leads the party to the orc encampment, where they see someone getting javelins thrown at them while they hang from a tree.
Yeah, they actually come across a couple of orcs on the road and follow them back to the camp.
Yeah. And Keyleth uses her sign language.
that was laughing. Hilarious.
I was laughing so hard with all of the the tactical video games that I've played where they actually use like police hand signals and everything. I was trying to figure out what the hell she was saying, and I'm fluent in American Sign Language as well, and I was like, okay kid, use your words please. And the party was like, use your words, and she's like, there's two of them, they're carrying a boar, and I went, got it.
Yeah, so my 13 years in the military, those hand signals, I see to blah 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 blah. Like, that's all there was to it. I see two.
And then you move over there, and I was like, wait, what is she trying to get them to do? But use your words, Kiki. Use your words.
So, before they actually get into the battle, because they were able to sneak up on the orc encampment, they're able to plan things out a little better than we're used to seeing. And really, the use of Mordenkainen's magnificent mansion, that's just, I love the way they did that.
It was brilliant on their part. It really was.
So what they did was that at the back end of the camp, Scanlan put the doorway to the mansion after being reluctant to do so.
Yeah. He definitely has a claim over that place. It's like his little sanctuary.
It's his,
and he doesn't want anyone else.
From home.
Yeah.
And then, they separate into three little sections. in order to get a good crossfire going and a distraction team. And Keyleth decides to conjure some dryads. And Matt reveals he hates conjure spells.
With a passion.
Especially if the book actually says, your DM's going to have a preset list. Don't worry.
Well, okay, so
really?
I looked up the spell, and it doesn't say that the DM will have a list of what you can... There you go. It says that the DM will have the stats for what you summon.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, because when he said that, I'm like, it says that? That's pretty assumptuary. That's a new word. I just made it up.
It's beautiful. I love it. Well, everybody use it. And tag cat when you do.
Yes. But no, it was just... It worked within the context of what they were needing. But no, it does not say that your DM will have a list of what can, just the stats for what you summon.
Yeah, it says the DM has the creature statistics, and above it says you can summon one of the following types.
Yes, and it outlines the types. So really, it's up to the player to compile the list. But by the same token, a DM should at least be aware of what can be summoned.
Sure, not off the top of your head though.
Oh, no. If you have a player that has that spell, make a note, and when they go to use the spell, refer back to the note.
That's one of the things about me using Fantasy Grounds is I can actually open up the monster manual and I can pull up a list by NPCs type. By type. Yep. By class index, and so I can go down, scroll down to Fey.
I use an app too. It does the same thing. I don't know what it's called though, but I've got it on my iPad, and yeah, you can choose by type, which is awesome.
I can also pull up by challenge rating within Fantasy Grounds as well. So that's pretty cool. But since it specifically is mentioning Fey, I scroll down to Fey and I've got Blink Dog, Dryads, Green Hags, Pixies, Satyrs, Sea Hags, and Sprites.
So yeah. So there's the list. But
there's the list. Found it.
But the thing that had me, I was laughing so hard I had tears in my eyes. She summons the Dryads right where the trap is. The orcs had a pit trap towards the entrance of their camp.
It was perfect. It was really good. The
Dryads are summoned. They appear for a brief second, and then Wile E. Coyote into the pit.
Yeah, and then what I think was even more hilarious to me was the fact that Matt made that squelching noises as they hit the spikes.
Oh God, that was so bad.
Whole Keyleth and little things.
What really had me laughing, a little later in the fight, Keyleth went Earth Elemental and threw an orc into the pit, right on top of one of the Dryads who had survived falling into the pit.
It was quite mean, actually. I'm like, I thought you were supposed to be nice.
Yes, but by the same token, they had enemies they had to deal with. Yeah. But it was just that poor Dryad, those poor Dryads, worst day of their lives.
Yeah.
Yep. And shortest.
Well, fortunately, if I'm not mistaken, the Dryads that are summoned by that spell make their home in the Feywild. So they are anchored to the Feywild. So if they die on the physical plane, they just reappear in the Feywild.
Yeah, they just return.
So fortunately, it's not lasting damage, it's just painfully annoying.
It's a bit of a trip in the day. They were probably having a great day. They were probably, wandering along. Oh, it's so beautiful. And then next minute...
Splat.
The next minute, their division watches light up, and they're falling through space.
Yeah.
So, but continuing on with the distraction, Scanlan does his Odaluk's resilient sphere and hamster balls into the camp singing, and he sings the troll song, which was just this was like the comedy of errors for those orcs.
Yep. As soon as Scanlan started with the ah part, I was like, he really is doing it. He is doing it, and he did it on a grand scale, the way we know Sam does.
Indeed.
He's got a good voice.
Yes, he does. So, and I you'll have to forgive me, I don't remember the exact order of the battle and all of that, but on the other side, at the back of the camp, on the opposite side from where the mansion door was, there were two bears that Matt described as having bones protruding from certain joints and a bone ridge on its skull and down its spine. That just screamed dire bear to me.
It screamed it to me as well.
Mm-hmm. But I don't think he ever actually confirmed what they were. But yeah, dire bears.
Yes.
Nasty.
And there was at one point where Marisha, and I don't remember exactly what. Oh no! It came up to be Pike's turn in the combat round, and Matt had commented, "Let's see what Pike would do," and Marisha popped up with WWPD. What would Pike do? Or was that Laura?
No, it was Marisha.
It was Marisha.
It was Marisha.
And Chad just took it, and it was just like, hashtag WWPD, what would Pike do? I want that on a shirt.
Yes.
I need to speak to Kenneth, the guy who designs. He does a lot of the designs for Geek and Sundry's Critical Role. Kenneth, oh my
Kenneth
gosh.
Riggles.
Yes, he's so good.
I'm decent friends with Ken.
Yeah, I play Legacy with him. He's in my D&D group. Legacy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, you got the hookup.
Yeah, he's awesome. And yeah, I'm going to have to ask him, can we please get that on a shirt? Because I would wear the shit out of that.
So, any artist out there, we need a picture of Pike with the hashtag WWPD behind her.
Yeah.
We need that submitted to be a shirt.
And we should, if I may, I'm going to add this little touch. She needs to be doing the index finger over her lips, looking up. Like, she's got to be pondering what she would do too.
Yes.
That's very
even better.
Very meta.
Indeed. So, a few rounds in, the javelin throwing orc turns, and after Percy had revealed where he'd been by shooting a few of the orcs, throws a javelin at him, and we see the gloves of being a monk, as I call them, come into play when Percy just outright snatches one of the javelins out of the air.
And he did that with a natural 20, am I correct?
No, the way it works is you roll a d10, I believe it is, and add certain modifiers to it, and if you reduce the damage to 0, then you've caught the the missile, for lack of a better term.
I knew that he reduced the damage, but I couldn't remember if there was like a dexterity check or something on top of that as well.
No, I believe it is actually for the monks, it's D10 plus monk level plus your dexterity modifier.
Okay.
I know for the gloves, it's at least the D10 and the dexterity modifier. I believe there's a third, but I'm not sure. We'll have to get confirmation on that.
I've got the, D10 plus dex mod.
Just D10
I just
plus
looked it up.
dex. Okay.
Yep.
So it's just
provided that you have a free hand.
If you want to catch it. Otherwise, you're just knocking it out of the way.
Okay.
It's pretty cool. Cool
Yes.
gloves.
So then...
And the picture in the DMG is awesome as well.
Yes.
I think he catches one, and then gets hit by the second.
Because you can only use it once per round, because it takes a reaction to do.
Yep.
So then after that, still in her Earth Elemental form, Keyleth, throws another orc into the pit. After doing a little joke, knock knock, and slamming their heads together.
Oh, she comes up best jokes.
I have to say, at one point somebody had mentioned that either Marisha or Keyleth in character had promised Percy/Taliesin that she would work on her one-liners.
Oh.
Yes, and she's obviously doing so to great effect.
It's a start.
Yes.
It's a start.
Yes. And actually, Kat, you made the note here, remembering what a person's surroundings are and how the moves and actions affect it. It really was well done.
Yeah. Because Matt basically remembers that there's a dryad at the bottom of the pit, and makes that little sound.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So, towards the end of the battle, it comes across that one of the orcs that at the beginning Matt had said had a headband with an uncut gem in it. And Matt, essentially reveals that it's the orc war chief for that little camp. He does a battle cry, which gives all of the remaining orcs advantage on attack rolls for that round.
Yeah. So some people in chat thought he was a bard. Actually, I think Sam said it at the table. He said, "Oh, he's a bard." But orc chiefs, war chiefs, get that battle cry.
Think of
it's
it.
a pretty common mechanic throughout D&D. The Fang of Yinoghu and the Knoll chieftains, they can do a similar thing.
Yeah.
It's called something different. It's like Battle Frenzy or something like that, where they can use their action to basically rally their allies.
Yes.
Anybody within 30 feet.
Kobold champions also have a similar mechanic. And then kobolds in general have pack tactics, where if there's two or more on a target, then they get advantage as well. So
pack tactics work a lot. Yep.
Yeah. There's a lot of different names for essentially the same thing. The difference being, bardic inspiration can be used in separate rounds, and B, it doesn't give you advantage. It gives you a bonus to your roll.
Right. And the the bardic inspiration, like you're saying, it could be used in separate rounds. Of course, the bardic inspiration lasts for 10 minutes.
Yes.
Which is something that's another most forgotten rule, I think, particularly on the Critical Role cast. They forget that they can only use it for 10 minutes.
Indeed.
Yeah, so use it. If you get it, use it.
Yes.
Sam's been... I'm going to give props to Sam, though, because later in the episode, he, albeit too late, he reminded Liam that he did have inspiration, and in the previous episode, which you already heard about, he mentions to... I forget who it was now. But he mentions, hey, you've got inspiration, use it. So he's been doing really good at reminding people of their inspiration.
Yeah, Sam's always been really good at that, actually, and even reminding them that they only have that 10-minute bracket. Like, I know there's been a number of occasions throughout the show or the series where people have gone, oh, I've got inspiration. He's like, I think I gave that to you a while ago. I don't think you still have that.
Yeah.
So props to Sam, he's on it.
Yes, he is a very good bard. So, wrapping up that battle, they finish off all of the orcs. Laura goes over to get the gemstone, and you can tell, although she's eager to get it, she's a little more cautious about it.
Yeah.
So, I like that little character growth. But they get everybody inside, or all of the refugees inside the mansion, get them patched up and all of that. Now, one thing I wasn't clear on, did the refugees go ahead and stay the night there and then go back, or was there any clarification on that?
What they said, because I was watching this right after the break, when they come back, Vex tells the refugees, you can stay here for 24 hours, you can stay in the mansion for 24 hours, and we will come back for you. And she kind of mutters under her breath, hopefully we'll come back for you. We will come back for you, and we will take you to Whitestone after we return.
Okay.
Whitestone's going to be flooded, man.
Yep.
Well,
A lot of
how
people.
suburbs get started. This is
Yes.
how suburbs get started. It's good for the
That's
economy.
true.
yes.
And the other thing too is Vax was burying all the dead.
Yes, Vax buried the dead, showing respect for the dead. And I like the fact that he did that, because it's also showing an acceptance for him being the champion. I don't know that is part of the specific tenets of being part of the Raven Queen.
It's not.
But at the same time, he's accepting, hey, they're dead. Move on.
Yeah.
So.
One thing he does say to this is Vax. One thing he does say to Scanlan after they come back, searching the cave initially, he pulls Scanlan aside and says, "No more blackbirds for a while, okay?"
Yeah.
And Scanlan is like, "Okay." And now I wasn't sure if this was Sam saying it or if it was Scanlan. He was like, "I don't know what you're talking about," and he was
seems
looking
genuinely
for an explanation.
Genuinely confused.
I think
so I don't know if that was Scanlan or if that was Sam.
I think that was Sam being confused at first, because at the end of that he mentioned, "Oh, okay, I got it now." But for clarification, in case you guys are like, "Whoa, they're a little jumpy," after the battle and after getting the refugees situated in the mansion, Vex and Scanlan go off exploring to find the specific location that Keyleth still had on what we had believed was the second obelisk. Turned out to be the entrance to this cave. It was a triangular cutout in the mountainside that would lead eventually to the temple that the Sphinx was located in. And as Scanlan was going with her, he had turned into a crow.
Because she looks like a witch on her broom.
He wanted to match the witchy persona that she was projecting with it. And I think in a way, Vax took that as either an omen or as
Hit too close to home.
Yeah, it just hit a little too close to home. Made him uncomfortable. And that's what he was getting at. And it took Sam a few seconds to realize what was going on. At least that's the way I read the situation.
And that's what I thought too, you know. But it was, in that moment, it was difficult to tell whether was the Scanlan saying, "Wait a minute, I don't know what you're talking about," or was it Sam? And yeah, probably Sam.
Because, you know, they are actors, and it is, you know, rather difficult to separate the two sometime. So, after Vex and Scanlan come back, they let everybody know what they found, and they set off and go to explore the cave.
But first we find out that Grog has not slept.
Yes, Grog has been avoiding sleeping and taking the short rests because he is trying to find out what happens when Craven Edge gets full.
Yeah. Oh, I just didn't want to lose the buffs. I don't even think he thought about... Yeah.
But, so when he gets... When he first, you know, gets up, he has the one level of exhaustion from not sleeping.
Yeah. So we've discussed exhaustion in a past podcast.
Yes. This time, Matt actually read it from the table in the book. And then, throughout the rest of the episode, did not argue with, or did not deem it necessary to correct Travis when he was like, "Oh, I have disadvantage for things outside, or for things that would occur later on in the at higher levels of exhaustion." But, you know, it's progress, slow but sure progress. Nobody has anything to say about that?
I liked that whole moment with Travis when the party was, you know, when the party was questioning him, "Did you sleep, Grog?" And he, "Oh yeah, I slept in the sand," and you know, and Scanlan's like, "Well, you've got a bed upstairs." "Oh yeah, I haven't been using it." And you know, I mean, the whole interaction between everybody was awesome, and Liam gets a whisper. And he was really excited because that's his first whisper on screen.
Yes,
since they've started streaming.
Yeah, he had done an insight on Grog and got the whisper.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting to watch how this plays out, though, because he kind of screws himself a bit in the upcoming.
But we do learn some interesting things as well, and we'll get to those.
Yeah.
So they go in and they, you know, search the cave for the Sphinx. And they come into this room where there is a pool in the center with a gold rim around it. And I don't remember if it was writing around the circle of the pool or on the wall. But there's Celestial that's carved into it somewhere in the room. Was that
it was on the room. It was on kind of like a banner, is what it sounded like. Like it was carved into the wall, but it was almost on like a banner.
Yeah, the way it came across to me was it was actually etched into the gold that was around the pool. And then on the wall was a mural where because it was a circular room, and it went each element blending into the next. Earth, fire, wind, water. I don't remember if that was the exact order it went in, but they were all on there, and you know, bled one in one into the other. And then we had a fifth element moment.
Yep, and I love that movie.
Yes. So also in the room there were 4 pillars with No, I'm sorry. I am remembering.
I was
that
just
wrong.
going to say.
That's in the
We kind of skipped
next. Yeah, that's in the next
Yeah.
room. I misremembered that. I apologize. I need better notes.
I'm sorry.
Oh no! It's my fault because my note taking was deplorable this particular episode.
Yes, mine was a bit all over the shop too, and I've kind of added to it and not really helped you. But
Nah.
yeah, so the first one was just a pool of water in the center of the room, and I think it was just there was nothing on the walls. But I think you're right. I think it was a band around the water. But I'm sure listeners, if you remember, you can tell us in the chat below.
Well,
Yes.
the reason that I say that it was on the wall is because Vax held up his dagger for Percy to read
Oh,
the
yes.
celestial.
No,
Yeah.
Kalia is correct. It was up on the wall.
Right.
So,
Here's the great thing about D&D though. We're all seeing it in the theater of our minds, and we're all seeing it just a little bit differently from the way that the players are seeing it, the way that the DM is seeing it. So it's open for our interpretation, and that's kind of cool to me.
yes.
And also,
We
when you're
can't cause
watching it
problems
12
sometimes as
o'clock at night-
DMs though.
when you're watching it at like midnight, some things just don't sink in.
Yeah.
That's very true.
So, but essentially the poem in Celestial, because Matt pointed out that the interesting thing about Celestial is that even when translated into Common, it tends to rhyme. Essentially, the breakdown of the poem is that the elements remember, and that the water is the door and the sky is a window. So,
Knowledge billows. The plains are all the shores.
yes.
The
So,
water is... The sky is a window, the water is a door. Something like that.
yes. So, Keyleth and Grog decide to explore the pool. They dive down, and the way Matt runs it, and I couldn't find it in the DMG, but the way Matt runs it is that your Constitution modifier is the number of minutes that you can hold your breath. Kinda screws the players with 0 or negative Constitution modifiers.
Oh, that's what my note was.
Yes,
Yes.
I usually run it where it's a D4 plus your Constitution modifier.
I've seen that rule. It might be in the DM screen. Let me take a look real quick.
Okay. Because like I said, I didn't look too hard because I was, trying to do 4 different things at once.
Yep.
But I didn't see it in the DMG. I'm sure it's in there somewhere.
It might even be Player's Handbook. I know that I've seen that somewhere before. Typically in 3.5, the way I ran it was you start making Constitution saves after your modifier to see if you start drowning.
So those with the -1 would just be doing it right off the bat. Or negative anything.
It is in the Player's Handbook. I was looking in the wrong location. It's under the suffocation rules. So let me pull those up real quick. And that is over on page 183 for anybody who wishes to follow along. Okay, so suffocation. A creature can hold its breath for a number of minutes equal to 1 plus its Constitution modifier, minimum of 30 seconds. When a creature runs out of breath or is choking, it can survive for a number of rounds equal to its Constitution modifier, minimum of 1 round. At the start of its next turn, meaning after it has passed the number of rounds, it drops to 0 hit points and is dying, and cannot regain hit points or be stabilized until it can breathe again. So there we go.
So the Constitution modifier is a very quick and dirty way to summarize that rule.
Yeah. But so they go down, they start exploring, and as Grog leads the way, he brushes up against some red kelp or algae or some other sort of plant down there, and it paralyzes
Any idea what those
him.
were? Any speculation on what those were?
Honestly, I haven't a clue.
None. No.
Okay.
I mean, there are a number of things it could be, but
It's cool.
there really wasn't enough information for me to narrow it down. He just said
I know.
red kelp.
I know at this point in chat, while I was there, everybody was going aboleth, 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 and I fell into that same trap.
No, the problem I had, I knew it wasn't an aboleth because even before you get to the algae and such, there are certain mental things that go on with an aboleth. You shouldn't get to the algae or kelp or whatever it happened to be. If there's an aboleth near there, you shouldn't get to that point unless you are charmed and it's trying to feed.
That's fair.
Otherwise, it's going to try to keep you away. So, but
I guess so.
yeah. So Keyleth uses control water to jettison herself and Grog back up. And I love that use of control water.
Yeah, she uses the control water spell very well in this whole thing.
So anybody who gives Marisha a hard time over poor use of spell usage, she also has exceptional spell usage to counterbalance it.
Yep,
Yeah.
she does. She really does.
So stop picking on her. Shame on you.
Yes.
So, eventually she gets the entire party back down into the tunnel and uses control water on the horizontal tunnel in order to get everybody through quickly without drowning. And there were, from what I was seeing in the Geek and Sundry chat, people were asking, where does the air come from if she's pushing it aside? And, the answer to that would, if you're looking for a very specific answer, it probably would have pulled in from one of the other ends and just, real small, thin, pulled in to pull it out. Or you can go with the magic answer and say, well, there's elements of air held within water, oxygen, hydrogen, and when she pushed it aside, it just created enough air from the water for them to breathe.
Well, I mean, if you have a strong enough air source, you're going to be able to create, basically a tunnel around it. The water is going to meld or move away from that air. And, she's creating a wind column, essentially, that is pushing the air or the water apart.
That is one way of looking at it, yes.
I mean, I see it like Moses parting the Red Sea, basically. She moves her hands and the water moves to the sides, which allows them to walk through it. And she's basically molding the water around them.
Indeed. But they get to the other side, and then once they get to where the control water tunnel ends, she uses the final few minutes of her control water spell to jettison the group back into the second room. And this is the room that had the 4 pillars with the lion heads with their mouth closed, and there's a hole in the ceiling. And it's on this wall where it's circular and that you see the different elements. And this is where we have that 5th element moment.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly. The way they were discussing how to, or where to go and how to to proceed while at the same time investigating the room around them. I'm not sure exactly how they came to that conclusion, but in hindsight, it seemed obvious. So
I think so. Taliesin put some water on the pillar that was attached to the water part of the mural. It made sense.
Yep.
It was very logical. And I like that about riddle rooms. I've been in one-shots and campaigns that you almost just want to get up from the table and walk away because the riddle is just so complex and there just doesn't seem to be any logical answer. And then even in some of them, the answer is given to you and you're like, how the hell were we supposed to get that?
And sometimes the answer is given to you, but the puzzles are reversed, and so you're trying to figure out the wrong puzzle, actually.
Yep.
Wizards, shame on you. Yes, you released the errata for it, but not before my players and I were really scratching our heads.
Indeed. But, so, yeah, they go through and get the elements, and as they put the elements on the pillar, the lions' mouths open, and once they get them all set, sand starts filling the room.
And then, this is the first time we've actually... No, I guess this is the second time that we've actually seen this. Matt pulls out an hourglass and tips it over.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we all know... or if you're new to the show, you may not know, but when that hourglass comes, they are on the clock. Everything that they do has to happen before that hourglass runs out. I think he also pulled it out for the Kavarn fight.
Yes, he did. It was after the Kavarn fight, if I remember correctly, when the
Illithid were attacking.
Yes. How long they had before the Illithid made it into the temple. But, in this case, sand starts filling the room, and Vex actually uses her broom to take the immovable rod to go up the hole in the ceiling and tie off the infinite rope.
Which is also attached to a robe, we find out. Vex thought that it was just a bag of rope.
Yes.
Not that it was in a robe in a pocket.
Yes. Which makes a little more sense to me, because I was searching for a bag of infinite rope in the DMG, and I just never could. But, yeah, no, the robe of infinite rope, so much more sense. I shouldn't say so much more sense. Really, the bag makes more sense. But the robe is actually in the DMG. So, she ties it off, and the others start climbing their way up. I believe Scanlan was able to fly along with her.
Yeah.
On the broom.
Oh, no, he climbed.
Or not Scanlan.
And she took Pike.
Pike.
Yeah.
I knew it was a gnome. I don't know why I thought Scanlan. But yeah, Pike goes along. And the others climb. Grog climbing last. But as they're climbing, the hourglass runs out as the sand is like very near the top of that, or very near the top of the room at the hole. And when it runs out, the sand drops in from the roof to fill the hole. But, they all make their saves, or not their saves, but their climb checks to eventually get out of the hole.
Vax like a ninja.
Yes, just stiff-arming the sides of the hole. But, now, the thing that was interesting to me was afterwards, they're like, did we do the right thing? Was that how we were supposed to get out? And everyone was like, well, yeah. Because, there's no other way, really, to to get up there if you don't have some form of flight.
Yeah, so they could have probably all gotten up there without the sand. I'm wondering if they hadn't have done that and released the sand, maybe when they tried to get through the door later on, or maybe something else would have stopped them and they would have had to have gone back and released all the sand.
That is a possibility. So the room that they come into, at the end of the hall, there is a double door with the symbol of Ioun on each of the doors. They check it for traps. It doesn't seem to be locked or trapped. The party is kind of not really trusting that, but with their track records with doors, I don't blame them.
And traps.
And traps in general, yes. So they're discussing how they want to open the door, and eventually it's decided Percy's going to open the door. And Vax asks him, "What do you see? Since you don't have dark vision and there's no light in here." And without so much as a shit-eating grin, Percy says, "I see a door I owned." So, revenge. The next room they come into, what they see is, for those with the dark vision, is there are 3 different paths that they can take in the next room. On the left and right hand side, there is a silken strand-like substance, I'll call it, that looks sort of like a tapestry, enough so that, or in its description, it looks sort of like a tapestry, enough so that Vax is like, "Do I recognize this from my dream?" And Matt's like, "Well, other than the fact that it's glowing, it's not pulsing or anything, so not really." And then in the center path, there is a divot or cauldron-like thing sunk into the floor. They start heading through and scanning dimension doors to the far end. Skipping one small detail, he put an Ioun stone in one of the 2 obelisks that were near the entrance of the room. That caused 2 braziers to light up. He dimensions doors down to the end of the room, and he's standing right next to a creature holding a blue marble with blue eyes.
And of course he mentions that the paw is as large as Scanlan is, and we know that we've found our Sphinx at that point.
Indeed. Holding to tradition, the Sphinx does a cryptic introduction by way of, "I've been watching your journey here. What is my name?" And then attacks.
All of a sudden it strikes me that we could have gotten another commercialized song in Say My Name, Say My Name.
Yes, we really could.
Someone in chat actually did that. They did like whole verse of Say My Name. Yeah, yes. In chat, and I'm like, oh, that's funny.
I don't know who you are, but well played.
But it was an amazing moment. Like the moment Matt said, now you have to prove yourself. What is my name? And you're just like, oh my god, epic. Now they've got to figure this out. Oh my god, no.
And what struck me was, I was sitting here scrambling. I was like, oh, wait a minute. They're already at the Sphinx. What clues were there to his name? So, the way the room was set up after, the introduction of the Sphinx, Matt pulls the cardboard that had been hiding the the big bad, quote unquote, for the room that they were in. And I just want to pause for just a second. Glowing fire, care of Dwarven Forge.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
That
was really
awesome.
cool.
It even had the secret door at the back.
Yeah.
But
Dwarven Forge is amazing. You can make like multi-level structures with secret compartments underneath, like secret rooms. It's just crazy. Like, check them out. The things that you can do with their stuff. It's good.
And we're not sponsored by Dwarven Forge. We're just highly impressed with them.
Yep, we're fanboys and girls.
Yeah.
But yes, so the room is set up. They've got the 2 braziers on either side of the pedestal that the I guess it's not really called a pedestal, but just the raised area where the Sphinx normally sits.
Dais.
Dais, thank you. And then in the back corner is 2 small pools of water. In the center, where that little divot is, springs to life a tornado that seems to be blowing sand around. And then in the corners near where the group came in, 2 piles of rubble and rock. But combat has started. Keyleth tries to douse the flame using control water again, but there seems to be no end of the water coming from the 2 puddles, and the fire just will not go out.
The other thing that I thought was really interesting here is Vox Machina was trying to do the right thing here. You could tell that they were really kind of at odds. They didn't want to attack the Sphinx because they were trying to be allies with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when their backs were against the wall and they had no other choice, then they started attacking. Which I think also the desperation led them towards the answer.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And those encounters are great when you throw your players into a situation and they're like, what do I do? I'm not really sure what's happening. And just watch them work it out.
Yes. So, during the battle, the webs that they had on the wall produced 2 phase spiders. Now, when they were entering the room, before the braziers had lit up and the fight started and all that, Vex did her primeval awareness to search specifically for spiders. And I think this was a great use of the web spider, or phase spider web, because it's essentially a portal, an extra-dimensional portal for those spiders.
Yeah. I think Keyleth did the check for spiders, and Vex did a check for celestials or something.
Yes.
She did a check for something else. Yeah.
No, you're correct. It was
Keyleth.
Keyleth did spiders, and then the primeval awareness was for celestials.
Yeah. So Matt didn't rip her off.
No, it was not a rip-off. They were not there. They were on a completely separate plane of existence.
Yeah.
Right, which primeval awareness and the keyless ability are not going to detect.
Correct. So then, and I forget specifically who it was, but someone suggested jumping into the pool.
Yeah, they were. Taliesin and Vex were like dipping their hands into the water, trying to figure out maybe it's something to do with these pools. I'm not too sure. And when Vex pulled her hand out of the pool, Matt said something like, unless you want to jump in it completely, like you'd want to do that.
Yeah,
something like that.
Which was funny because every time that when Percy and Vex put their hands in the water, once it broke the water surface, they could no longer see their hand.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think Matt was sort of egging them on there, more of a suggestion.
Well, I think it was a more blunt over the head kind of thing, because if you put your hand in and it disappears, it's a suggestion that it's going to another plane.
Yes.
Sure.
In my mind, because when the Desert Winds crew did the mirror challenge, I had something similar in mind. You know, you guys put your hands onto the mirror and it slowly sank in, and then kind of the mirror would close around it and disappear. Yeah. Well, you guys kept pushing through the mirror and you came out in that in the nine hells.
Yeah. So if you ever complain about your DM sending you to hell, watch out. It might just actually happen.
Mm-hmm.
Always an option.
You might get a new belly button piercing from it, too.
Yeah. Adron's actually considering getting that permanently done. But that's for another time. So Vex sets up the immovable rod and rope again. And she jumps into the pool. And there's whispering by Matt.
Yeah, she's showing more and more that... Well, I kind of thought when she just jumped in, she really doesn't fear death. Because it's one of those things that you learn from dungeon crawls and the really old one-shots and things. If you ever go back and play like the 1st edition, 2nd edition, never stick your hands in holes. Never jump into things. Right, because you don't know what's going to happen to you.
Oh yeah, I've actually lost a character because there was a portal. This was back in the 3.5 days. There was a portal in a cave, and through the portal came a voice. I was playing a rogue at the time. Through the portal came a voice promising me riches, and just everything that my character desired. So he stepped into the portal, and it went straight into the earth, or the plane of elemental earth. And so he was immediately encased in stone. In his mind, he got everything he wanted, but when the party found him, it was just his boot sticking out of the wall.
Where's my goddamn shoe?
That happens. That happens a lot, like in the older. So I'm kind of jaded a bit when it comes to just jumping into things randomly, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's got no fear. Yes. But yeah, it worked out.
So, as I said, she goes in. Because she tied it off to the immovable rod, she was able to pull herself out, and she shouts out 2 letters. And as soon as she shouted it out, the look on Talison's face, he understood immediately.
It clicked.
The letters for the Sphinx's name were in each of the elemental planes, and all of the different things around the room that was described earlier were doorways into those elemental planes. So on his turn, Percy, digs into the rock pile a little bit until he finds sand, and then he pulls down his mask and plunges his face first into it. He sees the letters. He pulls his head out and he shouts out those letters. Keyleth goes fire elemental form in order to look into the fire plane, and Scanlan jumps in, or dimension doors right next to the doorway into the plane of wind, and because of the winds that are surrounding it, he gets pulled into the door. There was a lot of discussion about that regarding his dimension door. Because later he tries to escape, or when he's trying to escape the plane, he dimension doors next to the portal again. But Matt had said you can't dimension door across planes. So there were questions about how he got in the first place. Matt specifically said that he was next to the portal and got pulled in because of the winds. So there's that answer.
Right.
But so he gets into the plane of winds, sees what he sees, but can't get back out in the same turn.
And he's starting to float away now, untethered.
Yes.
Well, and Grog had gone in.
I think Grog went in after him. No. Grog went in before.
Grog went in before,
yes.
and then Scanlan went in after.
So
Yeah, should we talk about Grog going in?
Let's cause some tears here for a moment.
Oh gosh.
So Grog,
Get your hankies ready if you don't already have them.
Grog goes,
Okay, go.
Grog goes in. He sees what he sees. In order to get out, he attaches the Chain of Returning to Craven Edge. Now, earlier in the fight, he had taken a swing at the Sphinx. The Sphinx failed its Constitution save. Craven Edge became full. He hit the 25, the max 25 strength. And so Craven Edge grew spikes, grew a little bit longer, just really beefing up.
Sinister as heck.
It's powered up.
Yes, and it starts doing necrotic damage as well.
2d6.
Yes. So, Grog goes in, sees what he sees, attaches the Chain of Returning, and throws it through the door. Matt has him roll an attack. Doesn't tell him doesn't tell him why or what the thing is. The look on Travis's face at that point is just, oh well, he's making sure I actually get it through the door. And then he makes him roll damage, and Travis's face falls.
Yeah, I think they've been playing with Matt too long. They kind of know.
Yes. Travis, when Travis went in, Pike was standing near the portal. And I think Travis knew when he had to roll damage what had happened. So he rolls the damage, and he starts pulling himself out. And when he gets his head out, Grog sees that he has impaled Pike on Craven Edge.
Yep.
And his nightmare has come to life.
She's holding it. Holding it like a boss.
She looks at it and says, "It's okay. I've got this."
Quiz. Hashtag WWPD.
Yep.
I was crying.
And then, of course, Vex comes over, and she's like, well, can I do anything? She's asking Matt, Laura is asking Matt, can I do anything to get this pulled out of Pike and, heal her? I want to cure wounds on Pike. And, of course, Matt is describing that Pike is sweating and that she's in a bad way.
Yeah.
And Laura's like, well, I want to pull this thing out and then cure wounds. And he's like, all right, roll a strength check. And Laura rolls a natural 20.
Yes.
There's something to be said about adrenaline in these games.
Yeah.
Oh my god! As soon as she pulled it out, she cast the cure wounds. Right before she rolled, as she was rolling, my blood pressure hit the roof. So I was like, "Don't you fail this! Do not fail this!" So, but fortunately, she gets it out just fine. She's able to cast the cure wounds. And at this point, Keyleth goes over, grabs the immovable rod. She drops her elemental form, grabs the immovable rod, gets as close as she can. She's out of movement, so she can't get to the portal. But she gets as close as she can and tosses the rod to Vex.
Right. Now, with this situation here, so Vex was with Pike in front of the whirlwind. So Keyleth had turned into a fire elemental, stuck her head into the flames, and grabbed the words from the flames. So they had the words from the flames, had the words from the water, they had the words from the earth. But they didn't have them from wind. Air.
Now,
because when Grog came out,
he saw what he'd done, and he was out of it.
Yeah, could not say a thing.
Now, not to plug McDonald's, but I likened this to the McDonald's monopoly. You've got all of the Park Place properties, but one.
It's so frustrating, isn't it? You're like,
no. What's you have all of them but one, and the person across from you gets the piece you need,
and won't sell it to you.
Like,
yes.
No matter what you want.
Okay, so yep.
But anyway,
so there was a lot of oh my gosh, Keyleth, because what she could have done. So Vex stressed to her the robe of endless rope is next to me on the ground where Pike is.
The rope is next to her.
The rope. It was already tethered. She could have, in theory, walked up, grabbed the rope, and jumped in.
Yes.
She had enough movement to do that. Instead, sadly, she walked past Vex, grabbed the rod, and threw the rod
to Vex.
And people were sitting there going, why? So, and all I can put this down to is that it was ridiculously late, guys. Come on.
Yes.
Yep.
She was probably really tired, and she just...
But at the same time, it also shows what the thinking is like in a real combat situation.
Yep.
You take the most direct answer, not the most
obvious
answer. Yeah, it may be obvious in hindsight, but
hindsight is 20/20.
Yeah, in the middle of battle, you're going to do what is right in front of you, not what takes a second of thought.
Oh, and now we understand why Adron pissed off the Marrow.
And they're a very disciplined group, because none of them said to Keyleth or Marisha, no, don't do that. Like, Vex went to and then stopped. And it's just a different level. A lot of Dungeons and Dragons games you play, there's a lot of tabletop talk and a lot of metagaming, which is fine. It depends on what kind of game you play. But they're very strict on that, which is pretty cool.
One of my philosophies is that the hardest thing to do as a veteran player is to let others play their own characters.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's difficult to do for knowledgeable newbies as well. But that's if there's one rule I feel that should be followed to the letter, to the spirits, everything, let the players play their characters.
Yes.
So, but anyway, she throws the immovable rod. Vex catches it, sets it, and Vax actually jumps in after Scanlan. Scanlan just looks at him like, what are you doing? And then dimension doors to the entrance, and then, climbs out via the rope. So Vex just is like, God damn it. I liked that particular moment, because he's like, he's trying to be heroic, and then it just sort of, no, not really.
It kind of backfired on him.
Yeah.
But it's good that he did, because he got dimension door out of a plane, and I think he thought that he could.
Yes.
So that would have been bad.
So they get out, and then they spend a few rounds trying to figure out the order of the letters that they got. And I'm not even going to try pronouncing the Sphinx's name when they finally get it. If you guys wish to, please go ahead.
Kamaljiori, I think, was the way that Taliesin said it.
So, there you guys go. And as soon
they
as
would have totally got that.
Yes, as soon as he said that, the fire goes out, and the wind starts to die, and Vax is almost trapped in the airplane, barely making it out before the portal completely closes. Now, one of the important things that we didn't talk about beforehand, because I felt that this would probably take a little while to discuss, during the encounter, the lair abilities of the Sphinx were activated. And I think it was a total of 3 times.
Yep.
It triggered so that it caused the players to age. Well, not the players, but the characters to age. The first time
when they started gaining age, though, the players were aging along with their characters because they were stressed.
Yes.
Yeah. So true.
And there was a little talk, at least in the Geek and Sundry chat that I saw, about it only going forward. Why did it not go backwards and that sort of thing? It could have gone either way. But either Matt rolled it or just chose to have it go forward instead.
I mean, there's something to be said for either one.
Yeah.
And I think in this case, having it go forward gave the players more opportunity to solve the riddles and the puzzle. Because if he had gone backwards, for the human characters, that doesn't give them a lot of time. For the half-elves, probably still doesn't give them a lot of time. Presumably Vax and Vex are, 25, 30. So if you regress them 10 years and then do it again later, now you've got a baby on your hands.
Yep. And when you go back or forward, your stats have the possibility of changing because of it. So if you regress them to child, their intelligence is going to go down.
Yeah. Well, I think the way that the book states is that they start again at level 1 if they regress past a certain point.
Yes. But at the same time, if they regress into their teens, they go back to level 1. If they regress into actual childhood, their stats go down. If you go too far into the next age category, certain stats go down.
It's good to be a tough DM, but not a mean DM.
Yes.
Like, you don't want to make the combat painful to the point where it's just, I give up, level frustration. So,
and can I also mention that the twins are now different ages?
Yep. It's pretty cool.
Yes. So
they commented on it during the show and they were laughing about it.
Yes. So at the end of the battle, that comment is brought up, and the Sphinx actually restores Vex to her correct age. But he then says, "That's the end of my spells." Excuse me. I hiccuped and burped at the same time, and it hurt. Sorry. But yeah, he restores Vex to her correct age, but says that's the end of his spells, and mentions that Pike should be able to correct the others whose ages have changed. He then goes into a little speech about what they're searching for, the Vestiges and such. And he actually lists off the ones that they can get. Whether they want to actually go to some of those places is a whole different matter.
No, one of them is in the Abyss?
The Feywild.
One's in the Feywild.
Feywild?
That one's not going to be too bad, but the one that's in the Abyss...
Talk to some folks on Twitter, and they will beg to differ with you. I've seen all kinds of F the Feywild posts on Twitter.
Oh, yeah,
and I can point you to people if you need to know who.
Okay, here's why I say the Feywild is not as bad as the Abyss. The Feywild is completely neutral. The Abyss is straight up evil. The Feywild may ignore you. There's a chance the Feywild may ignore you, may help you even. You go to the Abyss and everything is working against you. There is no safe spot in the Abyss.
That's true. It's fair.
That's why I say that the Abyss is worse than the Feywild. Now,
I'm not saying that... go to both.
Yes.
Because I want to see that.
So do I. But I'm not saying that the Feywild is not dangerous. I'm just saying there's a chance that there is some safety in there. Or some assistance. Not so much in the Abyss. At least not without a huge contract hanging over your head with demons. But after he lists off, the Vestiges, he mentions, I've got one here. And goes and gets this sword that is specifically tailored for bards. It buffs his inspiration, and it buffs his cutting words. And the players were all jokingly saying, it'd be perfect for Percy.
Well, the other cool thing is, it took him a while, it took Matt a while, but this was his tribute to Bowie.
Yes.
Oh.
This was his tribute to Bowie, the Thin White Knight, which was a nickname that Bowie had received and had gone by.
Yep.
So this was actually Matt's tribute to Bowie.
Oh, good on him.
So, thank you for that, Matt.
Yep.
But with that, the episode was brought to a close by teleporting the party out to the front of the cave. Like, out in front of it in the mountain range. So...
Good episode. Great good episode. Loved it.
Yeah.
And it actually disproves my theory that they were being cut short by the producers, because this was a 5-hour episode.
Yeah. So. It was a slog, but a good one.
Yeah. Indeed. Now, below, in the description below, and thank you so much, Kat, for getting, or Kat and Kalia both, for getting the list of the Vestiges. I don't know if that was specifically...
That was strictly Kat.
That was strictly
Kat. I'm not going to take any kind of ownership over that, because I didn't do that.
Okay. I just remember asking about it, and Kalia, you mentioned something, so that's why I threw that out there.
Thank you, Reddit.
But, so yes, thank you, Reddit, and thank you, Kat. I'll put the list of the Vestiges down in the description below if you guys want to see specifically what was mentioned, and a short description of them. So that brings us to the end of the episode, and a wild ride that it was.
I'm so excited about where they're going to go next.
Yep.
I think their first stop is to go rest in the mansion, and it will be really interesting to see what Grog does with Craven Edge now that his nightmare has been at least partially realized.
Yes. And she might be back for that one.
Hopefully.
Yep.
Hopefully. She'll be actually on set, hopefully.
For the 50th episode,
it's gonna be awesome.
Indeed.
And they also mentioned that there's going to be some special guests for the 50th episode as well. Taliesin had mentioned it. I don't remember if it was at the top of the episode, but Matt, was like, "Well, you guys are in for a real treat for the 50th episode," and I don't remember the names that he said.
Well, I think that was partially in jest, because they didn't want to reveal if there were any actual, because he started naming names of people that don't really exist. I think he used like 1, maybe 2 actual names, and then
Jesus Christ, Elvis Presley. No,
Yeah.
I'm joking. I know you didn't say that.
Yeah, but that's the gist of it. I think it was just him trying to play it up a little bit. But either way, it will be interesting.
So what do we have for DM's Corner this week? I'm seeing the second question here, and this looks interesting.
I thought we would actually cover both questions. We have 2 questions because we had a DM's Corner for last episode that failed in my technicality stuff. But so we'll just do really quick cover the last week's DM Corner and then the new one. Last week's DM Corner was, can a creature with the innate ability to transform themselves, specifically mentioned was dragons, be brought back to their natural form, and what good would that do? So just a real quick recap on that. Anything with the innate ability to either
Shapeshift.
polymorph, shapeshift, anything like that, it is still a magical effect. So, dispel magic should cause them to go back to their natural form. Anti-magic zone definitely will cause them to go back to their natural form. The next round, they'll have the opportunity to shift themselves again if they wish. That usually, if it's a combat situation, it usually locks them into they transform, their spellcaster, de-transforms them, puts them back in their natural form. The rest of the party is just hitting them, so they usually don't do that. But yeah, it's a magical effect. It can be dispelled.
Yep.
So,
Yep. And as we
go ahead.
just real quick, more than likely the creature that can polymorph is going to. You're going to run out of spells before the creature that can polymorph.
Yes.
More than likely.
Very true. And we also mentioned that in the case of dragons, Wizards has been very vague on their spell capabilities and magic capabilities. However, they've hinted that they don't have a spell list because they can cast all spells, and at the same time have, again, depending upon their age, have an unlimited number of spell slots. And this is hinted at because through the sorcerer who has the possibility of the dragon-blooded starting.
So
feature.
basically, you can make your dragons however you need them to be.
Exactly.
Yep. DM discretion.
There's
your world, play in it.
There's a reason why it's called Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh yeah.
So moving into this week's DM's Corner.
I'm actually really excited about this one.
Yes.
Ooh.
This one comes from Jonathan Garland at Mr. John Garland over on Twitter. And do you want to go ahead and read this one out?
Sure. So, say you, as a DM, give your party a gem or an item, some kind of plot point, and even you haven't determined its nature. Do you plan in advance, or do you let things develop and adapt to the developments of what the party comes up with for this item? I hope I got the gist of the question right.
To me, it looks it looks like you did. My answer to this is, if you're giving the party an item, why do you not know its nature?
Yeah, I'm already confused.
And I know I've quoted Chekhov before. If you put the gun on the mantle, by the third act, it better have been fired or used. Now, I remember when I did my Bowie and my Alan Rickman tribute, and I gave you guys the 2 items that came from that, the wand of defense against the arcane or dark arts, and the the hammer that has been renamed the Vengeance Hammer, so that we don't infringe on copyright. And I had been planning those items the entire day I was at work. I mean, I can see instances. Okay, you guys know how much of a proponent I am for improv gaming. Desert Winds is largely improv'd. And so I have had to give the party improvised items. But when I do that, if I don't know its nature when I give it to them, it very quickly has a nature after the game or during the next week while I'm planning what's coming next, where they're going to be in the story proper.
Yes. Now,
Yeah.
in my game, Sweet Suffering, my players have received a medallion that they're not quite certain what its nature is, but I know. And yes, that the properties of an item that you give a player may change. It's a dynamic world. Sometimes they may change. But if you don't know what the item does, just like when you're putting on a play or writing a story, if you don't know what it does, there's no reason for it to be there. It should not be there.
Right.
Oh.
Now,
So
I am going... Go ahead, Kat. Go ahead.
I'll just give my little 5 cents now that Kalia's kind of explained it a bit more. There have been circumstances where, even in my campaign, my players have shown up to a place and gone, do I find anything? Or, is there anything that I get from doing this? It's probably a random encounter. I didn't even intend for it to happen. Happens so many times when they just go, oh, I might go this way. And I'm like, okay, let's see what you find then. And you don't have loot prepped. For this, guys, if you ever find yourself in those situations, there are some great random loot tables that you can always have at the ready. You can use those.
I'm going to throw this one out. John, DonJon.bin.sh. It has wonderful random generation for treasure specifically. It will do hordes. It will do magical items based on rarity and all kinds of other stuff. So check that one out.
Yep. And if you don't have internet access in the middle of your game, like it pops up like Kat was saying, the DMG has has the random
in
tables.
your book.
Yep.
You just roll dice and it tells you what they get. So there's a lot of different options. Definitely, I would kind of move against giving your players things that you're not too sure what that item does. You really want to have control over those sorts of things so that you can have them in your mind even when planning encounters in the future. You really need to know what your players have on hand. But there's a lot of random tables and stuff to help you.
Now, here's another thought. If you do find yourself having mistakenly given your party something and you don't know what it does, but you've already told them it's magical, remember that there are magics to make it shiny. And that's all it does. It's a ring that looks shiny, and that's the magic.
And it's got a fancy name for being shiny. Yeah. It is the Ring of Illumination.
It doesn't really light up anything. It's just shiny. So
it is the Ring of the Enlightened Path.
Yes.
It is the ring of... I could come up with names for a ring that shines all day long.
Oh yeah. Now, if you're talking about... Now, if this... It doesn't say so in the question. But let's say you are running a module that somebody else built. And there's an item that you don't understand its nature in, but the players get it because of the module. That module should outline what it is. If not, fall back on the magic is it looks shiny, it catches your eye, it tries to make people want it even though it's not worth anything and doesn't do anything else.
Or even, it's going to take you a while to figure this out. I'll get back to you next session.
And I've done that during games
I've done that. Yeah, never be afraid to say, look, I can't find it right now. I don't have it on me. Can I get back to you next session? You're only human. You're not, just because you're a DM doesn't mean you know everything, and that's okay.
Or sometimes, like in my case with Desert Winds, I've completely forgotten to plan for loot, and I'm like, all right, guys, I'll get back to you with loot either at the end of the game or some point during the next week when I've had the chance to sit down and think about it, and I'll get you your loot. But to mention what Akiva said about if you're talking about a specific module where you gain something, it should be listed in the module. I wrote a module that's out on the DM's Guild called Identity Crisis, and there's a pretty sweet magical item in there, and I made sure that I went over its nature. Basically, what the hell? I'll give it away. It's a staff of spell storing that can store one spell for each level. So you spend charges. It's got, I think it was 40 something charges, 42 or 49, however the math works out from 1 to 9. But you spend 1 charge for a level 1 spell. You can cast a level 1 spell, and it comes with 9 spell slots already put into it. And then as you expend those, it frees up charges and you can start putting more spells into it. So it's specifically a Staff of Abjuration to start with. It's got level 1 through 9 abjuration spells in it. You spend the spells out of it, then you can put whatever other spell you want into it. But I mean, by the same token, I can also see giving the party an item and seeing what they do with it, because the party is going to be asking questions about this item, and they're going to be taking it to the next level. And when they're questioning the item, they can give the DM ideas that I as the DM hadn't ever thought about. It's happened in Desert Winds. I give you guys something and you start talking about it, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. All right, cool.
Nice.
That's happened to me too. I think I gave one of my players, it's like a floating orb, and it's just supposed to be a light. So you just let it go and it floats and it lights up a room. And one of the guys is like, they were falling from a bridge into a river. And he's like, I quickly pull out my orb and I grab hold of it and see if it can, help me. I said, look, it doesn't stop you from falling, but I love the idea so much that I'm like, I will give you a featherfall effect and you only take half damage from the impact. Because I love things like that. If players come up with really cool applications for different objects and items that they find, reward them for it because it's awesome. You want to encourage it.
Absolutely.
One final thing of note. When I started Desert Winds in August of last year, my party that I started with is not the party that I have now. I gave the initial party, one of the party members wanted a unicorn. And she wanted a unicorn and or she wanted a pony. So I'm like, didn't really want to give her a unicorn. So what I gave her instead was a marble statue of a unicorn, and the marble was carved in such a way that it looked really fluffy. Now, this item changed hands. This item changed hands from the old party to the new party. They had never used it. So the new party had no idea what it did. All they knew was that it was a unicorn statue. So in our little Desert Winds one-shot that we had this past week, the rogue finally pulls out the statue and she uses it. And the rest of the party's like, what the hell's going on? What is this thing? What does it even do? She pulls it out, and this phantasmal unicorn comes flying forward and hits this wereboar and causes psychic damage because this unicorn is so fucking cute.
Whoa!
Oh my gosh!
I'm sorry,
I'm thinking of My Little Pony moment.
Okay. This item was actually based on Despicable Me. Yes. Because the incantation from it is, it's so fluffy, I'm gonna die. So it sends a phantasmal unicorn out, which hits the target. They have to make a DC 17 wisdom saving throw.
Holy
If
cow.
they do not make that saving throw, they take 2d8 cuteness overload damage, which is, I put in parentheses, psionic. And yeah, I mean, that was the item. So the party finally found out what that fluffy unicorn idol did.
Now, I will say,
that's...
it in front of Adron, my character, it was pulled out once before, but it was it was more of a, the character that pulled it out and clutched it to herself like a safety blanket. She didn't actually use it. So he's seen it, but he doesn't know what it does. So that is awesome.
So yeah.
Okay.
There's another example. There's another example of give the party an item, and the party doesn't know its nature, and for the better part of a year, the party has not known what this thing is capable of, and they finally pulled it out. I think it's going to start seeing some more use. Probably.
But, and again, it's one of those things where even if that is not what she originally intended, it's a dynamic world. It can change. So, the answer to the planet advance versus adaptive developments, yes. Yes. Try
to plan in advance wherever possible, but if not, yes and move on.
Indeed.
I'm championing the yes and.
So, bringing this episode of Gilmore's Glorious Gossip to a close, if you enjoyed this episode, Druidcraft a click on that like button and subscribe to catch us each and every Monday, barring any more technical difficulties, knock on wood. If you have any D&D questions or tabletop gaming questions in general, go ahead and send them to us using the hashtag DM's Corner. That's DMS Corner. And if you want to submit art, please contact us via Twitter. I'm at Akiva David, AKIVADAPHYDD.
I'm Kalia at Cosmic, COSMICCANDI.
And I'm Kat at KittenSmittenG on Twitter. Hope you have a nat 20 day, guys.
We hope you enjoyed. Until next week, kick back, relax, and enjoy your games.
May all your hits be crits.